y queríamos dar las gracias a Marta Macías del Ayuntamiento de Madrid por cedernos este espacio, ya no está, y a Angélica Ogueta, que tampoco está, pero bueno, queríamos darles las gracias por ofrecernos este espacio, pero antes de empezar esta sesión queríamos guardar un minuto de silencio para, como muestra de apoyo a las personas que lo puedan estar pasando mal por los eventos que han ocurrido en Boston ayer por la tarde. Entonces, si os parece bien, nuestra solidaridad con todos los que están pasándolo mal, mucho apoyo, mucho ánimo y bueno, esperemos que hay que seguir para adelante, ¿de acuerdo? Entonces, ¿vale? Vamos a guardar un minuto de silencio. Bueno, muchas gracias y yo creo que ya sobran las palabras. Mucho apoyo. Bueno, este taller va a ser un taller en Spanglish, un poco español, un poco inglés, ¿de acuerdo? Ya habréis tenido vosotros una experiencia de unos cuantos meses aquí en España y deberíais saber o deberíais de percatar que algunas cosas se dicen mejor en inglés y otras cosas se dicen mejor en español, ¿no? Es decir, hay expresiones que si las traduces del español al inglés no suenan bien, o hay cosas que se dicen en inglés que deberían de ser en español y tampoco suenan bien. Entonces, dependiendo del tema que tratemos, hablaremos en inglés o hablaremos en español, o a lo mejor hacemos un mix, ¿de acuerdo? Sobre todo vamos a hablar en inglés, aunque ya sé que algunos de vosotros estáis aquí en España y no podéis hablar inglés, pero hacemos una excepción hoy, ¿de acuerdo? ¿Este taller en qué consiste? Pues el taller que hacemos hoy es sobre todo para que vosotros sepáis a lo mejor algunas de las cosas que vais a sentir cuando volváis a Estados Unidos, sobre todo si a lo mejor habéis estado aquí todo el año académico. ¿Quién ha estado aquí todo el año académico ya? ¿Quién ha estado solo un semestre? Un semestre, desde enero, ¿no? Bueno, pues a lo mejor sí que sentís ciertas cosas a la vuelta cuando volváis a Estados Unidos, y es lo que se llama Reverse Culture Shock, ¿de acuerdo? Entonces, lo que vamos a ver primero, bueno, primero quería dar las gracias a Marta y a Angélica, gracias, son del Ayuntamiento de Madrid y nos ceden este espacio para hacer el taller todos los semestres. Luego os voy a dar yo una pequeña presentación sobre el Reverse Culture Shock y los sentimientos que podéis sentir al volver, lo haré en inglés. Luego Almendra Stafagili es la directora de EUSA Academic Internships y os voy a explicar cómo podéis utilizar vuestra experiencia de estudiar en el extranjero, vuestro Study Abroad Experience, para incorporarlo en vuestro currículum y para que no os quedéis simplemente en que el Study Abroad era como un experience traveling abroad or I don't want to say this, partying abroad, ¿no? Pero que tenga un sentido, ¿no? Y que lo podáis incorporar porque sí que habéis aprendido muchas cosas, aunque creáis que no, en vuestro currículum para el futuro. Luego estará una persona de la comisión Fulbright Commission, os explicará algunas de las oportunidades que podéis tener una vez que os graduéis para volver a España, y luego terminaremos explicándoos otro tipo de oportunidades que podéis tener para volver a España una vez que os graduéis, si os apetece, si habéis tenido una buena experiencia y luego queréis volver, ¿de acuerdo? Entonces quería dar las gracias a Almendra, a Cara Maiden, que es la Educational Advisor de la Fulbright Commission, que todavía no está, pero vendrá, y sobre todo a Marta y Angélica, y sobre todo a vosotros que habéis venido, y espero que os resulte interesante. Marta quería decir unas palabras de bienvenida, bueno, y de despedida de Madrid, porque ya casi os vais.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Buenas tardes. Solo quería
dar un taller o una reunión para poder enviársela a los demás programas que están por España, como en otras ciudades, en Barcelona, Sevilla. Ana, para que sepas por qué lo estamos grabando. Y Carlos y Elena. Bueno, pues vamos a empezar. hablando sobre los aspectos, yo no quiero decir aspectos psicológicos porque no soy psicóloga, pero a lo mejor los aspectos emocionales que vais a sentir cuando volváis a Estados Unidos. Solo para poneros en antecedentes, yo soy un producto, more or less, I'm a product of study abroad. My mother, many years ago, I'm not going to say how many, came to Madrid to study. Some years ago, I'm not going to say how many years. So that's why I say that I'm the product of study abroad. I studied when I was born in Spain. My name is Monica. I'm the coordinator of APUNE, of the Association of American Programs in Spain. Boston College is a member. Marist College, SUNY, Middlebury College, and I don't know anybody else from EUSA. Where are you from? UC Davis. UC Davis, also. Okay. They formed an association to give support to directors and students. So I'm the coordinator. I was brought up here in Spain, and then I went to study in the States. So every summer, when I came back to visit my family, I felt reverse culture shock, coming back to my own country. And then when I went back to the States, I experienced reverse culture shock, and so forth. And when I spent in the States 11 years studying and working, and then I came back to Spain for good. So that's a little bit of my background. And some of the things I'm going to tell you today are some of the things that I've also felt. So that's why I say that we're going to talk about some emotional things that you may feel, not some psychological things, because I'm not a psychologist. All right? All right, what is a reentry shock? Reentry, or reverse culture shock, is returning home after spending time abroad. The adjustment to life after studying abroad and the range of emotions one can feel is defined as reentry or reverse culture shock. All right? Has anybody heard about reverse culture shock? What have you heard about it?
That it's difficult, that it's a constant pendulum between back and forth, between happy to be home, happy to be with friends, happy to be with family, and then swinging back to, I wish I was back in wherever I was studying, and just kind of being used to a different pace of life.
Right. Anybody else? Have you? Yes.
No, pretty much the same thing. I've heard it's like the most difficult part. They say it's like the most difficult part is to go back and you miss some stuff from where you were, like you were saying, and you miss some stuff from home, so like you're in between.
Right. In fact, anytime you have to do an adjustment in life, you have to go through culture shock. No? You change apartments, you go through culture shock. You start a degree, you have culture shock. Anytime you have to do an adjustment of what your normal situation is, you have to adjust to that, and you will experience some type of shock. Not shock like, but something, some feelings, all right? These emotions range from frustration to alienation and misunderstandings between you and your family and your friends. Hopefully not, but it could happen. What you were saying about the pendulum. All right, the emotions, they come back and they come forth and they come back again. One of the things that you have to know is that coming to Spain was easy because you didn't know what was going to happen. So whatever happened, you didn't expect, so you weren't surprised. The difficult part is going back to the States with everything that you have today, all the knowledge that you have now. Even though you may have spent maybe 3-4 months or maybe 6 months, you have learned a lot of things, you have experienced a lot of things, and you have changed. Even though you may not realize, but you have changed. And when you go back to the States, you're not going to be the same person as when you left. Everybody agrees with this, no? Yes? Okay. Why may it be difficult to return home? Studies have shown that the better adapted students were to the host country, the more difficult it was to return to life in the States. Sorry. So all the effort the coordinators and directors do for you to adapt to Spain is contraproducente when you go back to the States. But it is a time to learn and it is a time to grow, no, as a person. These students have changed their values, attitudes, ideas, habits, likes, views of self and of the US that now they must accommodate upon returning home. An example, or if somebody wants to share this, what did you feel in the States? Something like very strong that you felt in the States that you have radically changed it now that you have had this experience here in Spain, if you want to share it. Okay, no, not something radical, something normal. What did you think of Spain before you came to Spain? Or what did you think of Madrid before you came to Madrid? What were your stereotypes? What were your stereotypes? Nobody?
That there's a crazy nightlife.
Okay, and is that true?
Yes.
So that hasn't changed. Yes.
I think getting used to the faster pace of life back in the US will be a bit of a challenge because I'm used to kind of taking things slowly here.
So things are slower here and you'll go back to the States, no? And it'll be a much faster paced, right? Well, another thing that you have to realize is that, and I'm sorry to bring this up, is that things have changed while you were gone. And you go back to something that has changed. Not because of the events of yesterday, which I'm sorry, but something else. Maybe your best friend moved to another university, or maybe your sister got married and she's not home anymore. Maybe your best friend came out of the closet and you were there to show him support, no? Some things that could have changed in the States that you may expect that things will be the same, and you get back home and they're not the same, okay? Because things do change, all right? And you have changed. And you may not be the same person, and you will not be the same person as when you left the States. You have changed because you have experienced new things, okay? This is what's called the boomerang effect, or the re-entry worm, okay? This is more or less what will happen to you. Well, no, I don't want to say that will happen to you, but could happen to you when you get to the States. And I'm going to make a parenthesis. Did you have a talk about culture shock when you came to Spain? Before you came to Spain? Did they tell you what culture shock was going to be, or if you could experience culture shock? What did they tell you?
They said that you'd get there and you'd really enjoy things for a while, but then you'd start to get tired of the things that weren't the same as when you got there. And so it'd be kind of like, you'd be really happy and then kind of sink down into being less happy there, and then it would shoot back up when you got comfortable and you got to leave or something.
Right. Yes?
Yeah, the graphic representation they showed us was kind of like a sine wave that eventually just flattened out. I thought it was a good one because, yeah, she said when you first come you really enjoy it, and then it dips down, then you can go back up, and then eventually it smooths out a bit.
It levels out. Right. Well, more or less, you're going to feel the same thing when you're back. Okay? You're going to get back to the States, and you're going to be really excited to tell everybody what you've experienced. You're going to, what you were saying, you're going to want to talk to your parents about that trip you did to Cordoba. That was really, really nice, really exciting. That trip you went to Morocco and you met these people in Morocco. And then after some while, you'll start going down and not feeling that well because you realize that things have changed, or you realize that maybe they look at you and they smile and they nod, but they're not really interested in your trip to Morocco because you've already told it 4 times, and you're like, and then gradually, okay, you'll start to be a little bit frustrated because they don't understand you, and then gradually it will level out and it will be the same as that culture shock that you experienced here when you came here, okay? Even though this is kind of drastic, this very euphoric, then going down, then leveling off, maybe some of you haven't experienced these drastic emotions of euphoria, frustration, and leveling. Everybody a little bit does experience that. You go to a new place, or you have a new adjustment in your life, and you are kind of happy, or you are kind of euphoric, and then maybe you're a little bit disappointed, and then everything, no, levels out, and then you're fine, right? This is more or less what you will feel back in the States, okay? You will get back to the States, and you will be very happy to be there, you'll be very euphoric, you'll talk about all your experiences, and then gradually you'll start realizing, maybe this doesn't happen, but maybe most probably it will happen, that they're not that interested, and it's not that they're not interested because they're not interested in you. They may not be interested, your friends, your family, because they haven't experienced that, and they don't know what you're talking about, okay? And when you don't know what you're talking about, what happens? You lose interest, right? For example, I remember a trip I made to Morocco with, have you done Morocco? Well, I don't want to do publicity. Morocco Exchange. And I came back and I was in awe. Like, this is the best trip I've done. I told my husband, I told my mother went with me. I told my cousins, my friends, and they're like, oh, okay. And I'm like, this is the best thing I've ever done in my life, and they didn't understand why I was so excited or why I was so euphoric. But the experience that I had, even though I told them about them, and I tried to express what I was feeling, and I tried to make them feel the same way that I was feeling after having this experience, they didn't have the experience, and therefore they couldn't know what I was feeling, okay? And maybe that could make you a little bit frustrated, or could make you a little bit, not depressed, but a little bit like down, no? You want everybody to be excited about your experience and etc. All right? But this may not happen because they haven't felt the same things that you have felt. Do you understand? Okay. All right. What are the first stages for re-entry? The first stage is disengagement. We'll go pretty fast. This stage begins before you leave Spain. You begin to think about going back to the States and making preparations for your return home. Usually in this stage, well, most of you are leaving in June, no? So are you leaving in May? Somebody's leaving in May? Okay. All right. Usually this stage that you're at, the people who are leaving in 2 weeks and 3 weeks, you're worried about finishing your papers. You're worried about final exams, right? And you're already preparing for that return home. Maybe in this stage what you should do is also step back and see what you really liked about Spain, what you really learned about Spain. Maybe you should take some time to walk around your neighborhood to see that it was a cool neighborhood. Maybe you should take some time to talk to the neighbor in your building who always said, hola, ¿qué tal vas? Okay, because all these things, this first stage, when you're preparing to leave, you're so enthralled in finishing everything up and getting prepared to go back to the States and really excited because you're going back to the States, that you don't take time to assimilate everything that you have learned, and maybe you don't have time, or maybe you don't realize that you should be doing things that you really liked about Spain, or reading a book, or well, I don't know.
I mean, walking to class if I have enough time.
Okay, walking to class. Do you enjoy like maybe talking to...
Through Chambéry, I specifically like that neighborhood. Chambéry, I specifically like that neighborhood a lot, so.
Okay, so maybe you should take more time and like enjoy walking more around it and realizing that you have done really cool things and that you have to finish everything up, you have to prepare for your move back, but you also have to sit back and maybe enjoy what you are enjoying here in Spain, you know? Maybe taking some time to talking more to your señoras. I don't know if you talk or not, but maybe enjoying sitting down with her more, because then you go back to the States and you realize that I didn't say bye to the portero, or I didn't say bye to that little boy who said, adios, ¿cómo estás? Every morning, you know, those things that, and this always happened to me. Every time I came back to Spain after the academic year finished, I always came back to Spain and I always wished that I had 2 weeks to do the things that I liked, not the things that I had to do to get ready to come back to Spain. Do you know what I mean? Like, I always came back to Spain and I'm like, I wish I had more time to, I don't know, to walk on the beach and just walk on the beach, okay, or bike around my town or things like that, okay? Very daily activity things, but things that probably you will miss the most when you go back to the States. Well, this is also my personal recommendation. You may already miss the friends you have made or be reluctant to leave, and it is also possible that you have not had time to reflect upon your emotions and experiences because your last few days were very busy. And this is what I was saying, okay? This is what I was telling you. That you do have to be prepared for exams, you do have to have your final papers, you do have to buy another suitcase because nothing fits in the one suitcase that you brought. But at the same time, make sure to sit back and to relax and to enjoy your stay abroad, okay? The second stage is the initial euphoria, okay? It usually begins shortly before departure and is characterized by feelings of excitement and anticipation, even euphoria about returning home. You may be happy to see your family and friends, and they're also happy to see you. And the length of the stage varies and often ends with the realization that most people are not as interested in your experiences abroad as you had hoped. What I was telling you, okay? That you may go back and you may tell them everything that you've done. You may want to share with them how much Spanish you've learned or what cool museums you visited, but you may start realizing that they are not that interested in that. And it's not that they're not interested, it's that they haven't experienced it, okay? And they may not feel this, or they're not going to feel the same things that you are feeling at that moment, all right? They will listen to your stories for a while, but you may find that soon they're ready to move on to the next topic of conversation, right? The third stage is irritability and hostility, and hopefully you won't feel this, all right? But it's one of the things that you were saying, the pendulum, okay? What happens, or what the study shows, is that you may start feeling frustrated, angered, hopefully not alienated, but maybe lonely because you may not find people that have experienced what you have experienced, okay? And you may want to express your experience, and you may find a little bit disoriented, helplessness, and you may not understand why. Well, it's because of this, all right? You may be quickly irritated and critical of others and of your culture, although probably not. Last semester we did one of these re-entry culture shocks in the University Complutense, and we were saying, we were asking the students what were they going to feel once they get back, or what did they learn of their experience here in Spain, or what is the most important thing that they felt they were going to feel when they came back. And one of the students said, what I really feel now is that I really like the States. So that could also happen. Many times what we think is that you're going to go back and you're going to miss Spain, but you may realize that you really like the place where you live after having the experience, the study abroad experience, okay? So I don't know if you've experienced it. In general, your experience here in Spain has been good? In general? What?
I was saying that maybe today is not the day to ask.
No, well, yes. Maybe not today. But last weekend, I'm back.
Yes, before we knew.
In general, yes, no? You've had a good experience? And you may become depressed and feel like a stranger at home, or experience a longing to return abroad. You may also feel less independent than when you were in Spain, because you have other things that will make you feel that you're more dependent. No? Your mother can get a car and drive to where you are in 3 hours. So, and she couldn't do this in Spain. So, and the fourth stage is the stage of readjustment and adaptation. The majority of people transition to the stage, which is a gradual readjustment to life at home. Things may start to seem a little more normal, and you may fall back into some of your old routines. However, things will not be exactly as how you left them, right? Because you're not the same people, you're not the same person, and the people who are there are not the same people either. Okay? They have had experiences that you have not shared with them, and probably when they tell you, you may not understand them either because you haven't had them. Okay? You have mostly likely developed new attitudes, beliefs, habits, and personal and professional goals, and you will see things differently. Has anybody changed their professional goals after their experience here in Spain? You have? You see that? Do you want to share it? Or no? Okay. Never mind. Somebody else?
Well, just thinking about, where I would like to work in the future, what city I'd like to work in, I thought about also European cities as a possibility in the future for places to work as well.
And you didn't think about this before?
I didn't think about this before.
So now Europe has opened.
Yes.
The doors to Europe have opened. Anybody else that want to share it? Any attitudes, any habits that you had in the States that you changed here in Spain and that you will bring back to the States? Take back to the States? Nobody?
Just being comfortable with doing things on my own. If I want to do something and it's not what everyone else wants to do, it's okay to do your own thing sometimes.
Exactly. That's really important. Knowing how to do things on your own and knowing that you can do things on your own. This is another subject, but I was in a meeting the other day and they were talking that little kids, parents or the school doesn't show kids to play on their own. And it's very important to know how to play on your own, because through your life there will be occasions where you have to be on your own and you have to know how to do things on your own. Okay? And learning how to do things on your own is really important for the future. Imagine retired people are alone and many times they get depressed because they haven't learned how to be on their own. This is an example. I went the other day to a meeting and
kind of goes along with that, but just like knowing that if I want something, I have to go after it myself. A lot of times in the States, if you, like, for example, if you walk into a store, everyone comes to help you and like wants to know what you want. Right here, I've had to do a lot of things just to go get it myself. And that's a good thing to learn.
Well, you've learned in Spain that there's no customer service, right? Definitely. Which is also, like, you have to think about it, like, nobody's going to be polite just for the tip. If they're polite, it's because they're nice people or they like you, so. All right, and the important thing is to try to incorporate the positive aspects of your international experience to life in the States, okay? Is it more difficult to return than to leave? Students think that it may be difficult to integrate to life in Spain, but not to return home. And studies have shown that it is more difficult when you return home after a study abroad experience. But this is because you already know what you're going back to, okay? When you come to Spain, it's something new. You don't know what to expect. You may have good expectations, you may have bad expectations, but you don't really know what's going to happen. Now that you've had this experience here and you're going back to the States, you know what's going to happen in the States, no? When you get back, you're going to have to register for the fall semester, no? Or you're going to have to get a summer job. You already know these things, no? And you may feel like a little bit, oh, I want to stay in Spain a little bit more. Or I'm dying to go back to the States and find a job, and no? But studies show that students readjust worse after their study abroad experience when they return home than when they're going to have their study abroad experience. And it's because of this, right? And one thing that may happen is that you may not be aware of how much you have changed until you get back to the States. For example, doing things on your own. Okay? If we hadn't talked about this, you may have not talked about this, or you may not talk about this until you leave, and then you get back to the States and you realize that you can do things on your own. Okay? So it's good also to know what things you've learned, what things you've acquired, no? And what things you can do better once in the States after this experience. All right, what can you do to cope with these feelings? And not only to cope with these feelings, but maybe to help the students who come to Spain next semester. Maybe you also want to help them, no? Explain to them things that you have learned here or things that you have experienced here, right? So participate in another study abroad program or travel independently. Who has learned to travel independently here in study abroad? Many people. It's also very important to know how to travel independently and not be dependent on your group of friends to do things, no? Intern or volunteer abroad. I don't know if anybody is thinking of doing an internship abroad or volunteering abroad after having this experience. Okay. get involved at home. I guess there's orientations at the campus for the students who come back here. If you want to collaborate with them, or if you want to keep in contact with the Spanish culture or with the study abroad experience, you may want to volunteer your time and go to these orientations for the new students that are going to come, and tell them things that you weren't told. For example, what things you weren't told that you wish you had been told when you came here? Anybody? Did anybody tell you that your señoras were going to make you wear zapatillas at home? They told you?
One of my friends did, so.
One of your friends? Okay. What other things did you wish that you... They tell you that the señoras talk to you like if they were mad at you? They didn't tell you? Do they? Yes, but it's a way of talking. Did they tell you to eat bread with all your meals? Nobody told you that they were going to make you eat bread with all your meals? And do they? Well, these are small things, okay? Maybe there's other bigger things that you may want to share with the people who come. You can also be mentor for international students, or you can join international clubs or organizations. And you can continue to read online news, attend foreign cultural events and celebrations in the US, and frequent local ethnic restaurants, if there are in your area. And then also keep in mind that it's important to realize that upon return to the States, you have experienced personal life changes, and that you are more mature, and you may not know just how much you have changed until you have returned home, okay? These are some of the websites. This PowerPoint presentation, I'm going to, it's in the APUNE's website. Maybe you can tell your directors to send it to you if you want to review it again, okay? And now I have a little exercise, which is a little bit cute, but we're going to do it anyway, okay?
Put them there, and that you put it in such a way that it's understood as a skill, as something that will benefit the company. Anyway, going back to the two types of resumes, there's the experience or the chronological one. The experience one is very good if your previous employers have been prestigious. If you are interested in staying in the same career or the same type of industry, and also if you have a stable work experience. If you are a student and one summer you bartended, and another summer you were a camp counselor, and every summer you've been doing something else, the chronological one or the experience one is probably not going to be the best one for you, because you're going to be all over the place. You're probably going to want to list your experience, but dwell more on the skills that you acquired in each of those. So this one is definitely better for you, especially if you're considering more than one field. Obviously, if you're a pre-med student and you are going to be going to medical school, then maybe the experience one makes more sense, because you clearly will have had to have jobs that are more related to the medical field. But if not, if you've been all over the place, you want to make up for a lack of work history by including the things that you've learned to do through your different experiences. Now, the essential parts of a resume, obviously contact information so they can get in touch with you. The objective, I've seen resumes that list an objective, and I've seen resumes that don't. One thing that's very clear, if you find a job that you're interested in and you want to list the objective, I hope to work for a multinational company which will enable me to travel abroad as part of my job. That's great, but every time you send it to a new company, make sure you check over that line, because I've seen people list the name of the company and they've been sending it to another place, and that really looks terrible. So if you're going to have multiple resumes, but make sure that you have the resumes organized so that you're not mixing them up. Maybe you're going to have I I started out as a Spanish and art teacher, so I had my languages and my art and my teaching one, and then I became an art historian person, so I have those, and then I became I did an MBA, and I had a business one. So you're probably going to have a series of different resumes, but make sure you keep it organized for yourself. Your education. Right now, most of you are there any master's students here, or everybody's undergrad? Okay. Later on, as you go through life, your education, especially if you take many different routes, you may want to have one resume that lists everything, and then you may want to have other ones that modify it, so that if you're interested in more of a business placement, you get rid of the experience that had to do with teaching or something like that. So you may have, with the education related to teaching. Coursework, this can be very good, especially if you don't have a lot of experience and you're looking for one of your first job. One of the items that you can list is relevant coursework. So the academics that you have had that relate to the job that you're looking for. Your skills list, your experience, and this one, the activities, this is vital. This is my brother, he was looking for a job for 6 months. We spoke, I said, well, why don't you say that you did a volunteer experience, that you traveled in India, that you grew up in Spain, put that on, and he got a call. And he was like, I can't believe it. The activities section, this is the thing that will really differentiate you from others. So make sure you put that. Other things that you need to include on your resume are technical skills, especially when I started using the internet. I was in college, and it was very different. You guys have been using email and web and social media. Put that on your resume. You're a generation which is different from even me, and I'm only I'm 15 years older than you, more or less. Anyway, in any case, there are new jobs that have developed since I got my education, and by the time you graduate, there will also be new jobs emerging. So anything that's technical, make sure you put those down on, because there's more and more work in that area. Things that have to do with social networking abilities, put them on if you think it's relevant to the position. Some students are very good at all of the social media. If you are very good at it, and especially if you enjoy it, put it on it. If you really don't like it, don't put it on, because you may be offered a job because you know how to do it, and if you really don't want to do that, then, and if you can allow yourself not to, then don't put it on it.
One of the things I forgot to tell you is, and this could help towards writing down, is do a blog on your experience. Do a blog down and write down your experiences if you want to do it. And then that can be shown as an example. I don't know if anybody has to do a blog here for your coursework. Is it good? You think? No? Maybe you can consider that as a study or experience, and
it's also part of your portfolio. It can be evidence as well. So if they want to see something that you've been able to do, then you can show it. Your activities and interests, as I said, this really tells what you're able to do in terms of people skills. And this is really valuable. Even though we're moving towards an era of online learning, all of these sort of things, we're crazy about social skills. And you've been living in Spain, which is probably one of the most social countries in the entire world. So I hope you have developed social skills, and I'm sure you have. Being able to talk to somebody that you don't know at all about something, that's great. And also list things in your activities and interests that support your objective. So if you want a job in something that has to do with the environment, then if you did do something in study abroad which included environment, put that in. So if you did go to, you went on a hike to Gredos, or you did something in part of your program which involved nature, put that on. And references, some resumes include references. This is a good thing, only if those references are going to be able to support you, if they're going to be able to give a positive image of you. And And if you do select a series of references, make sure you contact them so that they know that they're going to be called. Especially if you end up applying for government jobs and things like that, you always have to give references. If you are going into positions where you're going to be working with other people or in healthcare or teaching, you might also have to put references. So make sure that if you're going to list someone, you not only tell them that you're listing them, you're asking their permission, and you're also sending them a copy of your resume, so that if they do get that call, oh yeah, oh no, that's right. So yes, she was in Spain, and when she came back, that's when I met her, and really she was this well-rounded person because she'd had this amazing experience, and she learned to do all of these different things. This is impossible to see. Sorry, we apologize. These are the two different types of resumes, the starter skills resume and then the starter experience resume. If you get your program director to download this PowerPoint, you can actually go in and just take that out and print it up so that you can see it. I apologize for this, but you will see the basic, the structure and how it differs. Now, to sort of end, you've been in Spain, you're having all of these experiences, you're going to go back to the United States, you're going to take a moment, you're going to reflect upon what you've done, you're going to make a list of all of the different things that you did, not only in Madrid, not only in Spain, if you traveled outside of Spain to Europe, wherever, you're going to put all of this down. Then you're going to look at that list of skills, or you can go online, skills list, and you can get all sorts of things. Match your experience to skills, and then sit down and begin writing your resume. Send that off, but at the same time start practicing talking about your skills, so that when you have an interview, you're able to say what it is that you were able to do. And what was there behind your decision? How has your experience abroad enhanced your life? You will need to prepare responses to these types of questions. And how has your internship experience or your volunteer experience or your study at a Spanish university, how's that prepared you for the job market? So these are questions that you'll need to start preparing answers to based on your experience, and then again, bringing it always back to the skills that you learned, the ability to communicate better in a second language, the ability to convince people of your ideas, the ability to hold a conversation with people from a different culture, all of the different things that you are able to do now that you've been here. And if you have any questions, my contact details are here, and you can get in touch with me. If I don't know you, don't list me as a reference. And if you want to get to know me now, that's great. Then I'll be able to list you as a reference later on. And anyway, here's some references for this presentation.
And that's also on the website, Apple's website. Tell your reporting.
Okay, thank you.